Today is September 30th, 2008. My name is Gwendolyn Coley. This interview is for the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project. We are here today in Las Vegas, Nevada, for the biannual conference of the National Association of Black Military Women. If you would introduce yourself and then tell me where you're from and a little bit about yourself growing up.
Okay, my name is Loretta C. Johnson. I was born and raised in New York City. I was born in Manhattan. I lived in Brooklyn for a while, but mostly I'm from the Bronx, New York. I went to mostly Catholic school growing up, went to quite a few schools. And by the time I got out of grade school, Catholic school, I was tired of religion, so I didn't want to go to Catholic high school. So I went to Walton High, which was an all-girls school. They had about 8,000 girls in the school.
It's a large school.
Yeah. And I graduated in 1954. And I had decided when I graduated, I belonged to the Civil Air Patrol.
Civil Air Patrol?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had decided, you know, they took us up on a plane ride, you know, like a Cessna 131, and then I decided that I wanted to fly. So that's why I joined the Air Force.
Okay.
I went to take the test, and I didn't pass high enough at first with the Air Force because I didn't have algebra. I took a business course. So they said they would take me in the Army. Then they said I was too short for the Air Force. They were trying to get me in the Army. But I said, no, I want to go in the Air Force. So I went and got a book.
Wait, the Army told you you were too short for the Air Force?
Yeah, 'cause they were trying to trick me into going to the Army. I went and got a book, you know, a civil service book, and just studied the algebra and went back and took the test. They asked me did I want to become an officer, and I said no, I didn't want to become an officer. So I went through basic in August of '54, and I spent...
Where was that?
This was in San Antonio, Texas, Lackland Air Force Base. And I spent 12 weeks down there, and then I got shipped out to Anti-Air Force Base, Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Okay, let's go back to your basic in Texas. Tell me about that. 12 weeks, did you say?
Yeah.
Tell me about,
shipped me out.
What did you do during that time?
Well, we learned discipline, and our TI, you know, she trained us in monkey drill, and they had us
What's monkey drill?
Well, you do trick drill, like, you know, you've seen them do it in parades where they go one way and then come back and then they go to the winds, and monkey drill they call it.
Is that like what marching bands do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that.
Okay.
They train you to do the different movements. And they could hear us go all over that base because we had those little Admirals, those big boots, and we put steel cleats on the front and horseshoe cleats on the back. So when we marched on that base, they could hear one sound of the whole, like 68 of us marching at one time. Just, you hit the ground at the same time.
And was this a segregated unit?
No, it was mixed.
Wow,
Yeah.
in '54?
It was, yeah. There weren't many black girls in my unit. I have never been at a base that had too many blacks anyway. But there were bases that had a lot of blacks stationed. I was never at one of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for 12 weeks, what else do you recall besides those boots?
Well, it's just that they were very strict on discipline and stuff like that. We'd get gigged most of the time. I hung out with 3 other females, and it seemed like we would always get in trouble, but the TI knew that we hung out together. So if one got in trouble, we all got blamed, because she said if one of them did it, you all must have done it, been involved. So we would get punished for doing. I wouldn't be doing anything, and I would get punished.
Well, what would be some of the things that somebody did to get in trouble?
Oh, God. I forgot, really, but I know, just, I don't know, just certain things around the barracks or something. Get caught out of bed at the wrong time. But one night I was upstairs visiting this one friend, and we should have been in bed. And the TI was checking the billets. So I got caught upstairs, and I couldn't get downstairs because she was up in the next wing. And so I didn't know what to do because we knew that I couldn't hide in the closet because she would go and look in that closet. So I got down behind the bed. We had bunk beds. Got down behind the bed, and she came in and looked in the room and looked in the closet. And so I had to wait till she went down to the other side, to the next wing. And when she went down there, I ran down the hall, and ran downstairs, and I hopped in my bed with my uniform, my shoes, everything on, you know, and I just got in there in time, and she turned on the light and looked at me, and I looked at her, and she turned out the light, and she came back and said, Airman Johnson, get your shoes off. But she didn't catch me out of bed. But I still speak to her now. She's living in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I tell her all the stuff that we used to pull, you know. And she said she just laughed now. But she
What's her name?
Her name was Rose Sharinsky, but she got married. Her name is Rose Stewart now. I tell her about the stuff that we used to pull, and she laughed about it. But she used to always get after me when we were drilling, marching. I don't know, I would get out of step, you know, and she would tell me to get back a step. Airman Johnson, get back in step. And I had to skip to get back in step. And then I just smiled. And she said, Airman Johnson, get that smirk off your face. And she always kids me about it now. It's been since '54, and I still keep in touch with her.
Now, what does TI stand for?
Tactical instructor.
Okay. So
Yeah.
for the Army, it's the equivalent of drill instructor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Or, I'm sorry, let's see.
Yeah.
Drill sergeant.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the
Equivalent.
same. Yeah.
Okay. So during those 12 weeks, anything else that you can recall that sticks out in your mind?
Well, I know when we got down there, we'd go to the mess hall. You have to get up early in the morning for reveille early in the morning, like 2 o'clock in the morning, and stand out there, and it's freezing cold in Texas, you know, and then during the day to get hot. And I know we went to bivouac. Well, bivouac was, we went to eat first, and then we went out to the field, and they put this mustard gas, you know, trained us with this mustard gas and everything. And then I had I think it was a pear, and it was green, that I took from the mess hall, and I put it down in my field jacket. And by 12 o'clock, I took it out. It was ripe. But we only spent a half a day in the field, not like the Army that spends 2 weeks, you know. That was our field trip.
Not bad.
And
So
then
you went from there.
I went to Anti-Air Force Base. They put me in admin, which I couldn't stand.
How
I
come?
hated it. I didn't like typing, sitting there typing all day long. And especially when they put me in, I was in the comm center, so I had type all the messages that came in. Sometimes the guys would keep some messages from me, like if they had found an officer or something exposing himself, stuff like that. They would try to hide it from me so I couldn't see it. So they would take it. It was secret. We handled secret and top secret stuff. But a lot of the letters came in from different bases. But I stayed in that about a couple of months, and I guess my commander of the section had thought that, he said I didn't look like I was happy. Well, you know, I was typing, and I would get numb across my shoulders. I couldn't take it. So they sent me to see the personnel officer, and he said he'd put me in supply, where I didn't have to do that much typing, but he said if I gave him any more trouble, he's going to put me out of the Air Force. So supply wasn't too bad. I went to the supply warehouse, worked in it was the country store where they get all the supplies from and everything else, and I worked in the air parts warehouse. And I did that for, 2.5 years. And then...
What rank were you by this time?
Well, in basic training, everyone got one stripe. You got out of basic training with one stripe unless you really goofed up. When I got to Anti-Air Force Base, I made Airman Second Class.
And what state is that in?
Huh? Colorado Springs.
Okay.
Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah. I made Airman Second Class there. And then I think I made Airman First Class there too. But they had, I couldn't go on flying status out of basic because I was too young.
How old were you?
18. Too young. And then they needed flight attendants, so they, 2.5 years later, they were calling for flight attendants, so I volunteered. My commanding officer had said I was too shy to go on flying status. She didn't think I was going to make it, but she did let me go.
They have flight attendants in the Air Force?
Yeah. Like, yeah.
Never thought about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we flew troops, and we flew government workers, and we flew movie stars.
Okay. So
Yeah.
tell me, where did you go for that training, or did you have to go for training
Yeah,
for that?
I had to go down to West Palm Beach, Florida.
Okay. How'd you like
for a
that?
month. I liked it down there, but when I got down there, you know, I went home first to New York, and then I went down to West Palm Beach, Florida.
Well, tell me about the reception when you went home.
Oh, well, it was, well, you know, I took hops home
Okay.
from Colorado every now and then because I would always go to the base operations and see what was going on the weekend. We used to go down to Juarez. I didn't care anywhere the plane was going, I was going. And you just had to ask the pilot, you know, can we go? And he says, yeah.
Okay.
So we get on and go for a weekend. I used to fly back to McGuire and then take the train into New York.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, when I went back home, it was a lot different because, you know, my father was very strict growing up. You know, we went out to parties, and my sister wanted to go to a party. I had to go with her whether I wanted to or not. Then we had to be home when the party got started, you know, and God. I mean, even we came home from school, you know, we had to walk 13 blocks to school, to the train station. Then we had to take the subway, 2 trains to get to the high school. And sometimes the train, you know, you get out and you have to run like 4 long blocks up the station to get on the train, and we missed the train. And then we were late like 3 or 5 minutes. We got a licking. There was no explanation. You just got a licking. So we used to run like crazy to make sure we got that train.
Well, let me ask then a little bit of a deviation here. What was your father's reaction to you going into the military?
He didn't want me to go. He promised me, he said if I stayed and went to college, he'd help me through college, and also he would help me buy a car. But I said, no, I'm going, because one thing, I was living with my father and my stepmother, and we were still getting lickings at 18, and 18 is too old. And I said, I better get out of here, because if she hit me one more time, I'm going to turn around and hit her. So I said, I better leave. And I went into the Air Force. My sister was a year older than me. She was supposed to go, but she said that she wasn't going to run away. So she stayed, and I said, you stay, I'm leaving.
She considered you running away.
Yeah. I said, I'm leaving, because I really wanted to join the Air Force to fly. If I had stayed home, I would have became a policewoman or something like that.
Okay. So you were on your way to Florida for flight attendant school.
Yeah. And I got down there. Well, you know, in basic training, I ran into prejudice down there. And the TI had warned us, because I used to hang around with 3 other white women, and she had warned us, don't go off base together. So, you know, one was from Missouri, I was from New York, another one was from Washington State, another one was from Massachusetts. And we decided we're the 4 Musketeers, we're going off base. And get off base, and we tried to find some place to eat. Well, you know, they weren't going to serve me. And this one girl from Massachusetts, she was going to get us put in jail, you know. So we said, well, let's get out of here and go. We found a place where they would serve us. It was a Mexican place. And he said he would serve us, but we had to eat in the park. We couldn't eat in his place. So we got the food and ate in the park. And then, you know, everyone liked to get mail from home. So we weren't getting any mail from home. So we went to the See's candy store and ordered 4 boxes of candy and had it shipped back to the base for mail call. So we all went up. We had our box of candy delivered to us, you know. I told the TI about that, too. She cracked up laughing. But when I went down to West Palm Beach, Florida, I got off the train and I went to get the cab. Called the cab. The white cab came. And he says, oh, you called the wrong cab. You have to call this cab company. And then it was a black cab. So I ran into prejudice down there, too. I was so glad I wasn't stationed in the South. But I only had to spend a month down there, and then they shipped us out to our home base. And
well, tell me about that training. What kind of what did they teach you in flight attendant school?
They teach you about the aircraft, you know, and your duties, what you're going to have to do.
What were your duties? I mean, I
checking-
know what flight attendants do on civilian flights, commercial
we
flights.
did more than that.
What did you do?
Well, we had to check the emergency equipment, all the emergency equipment we had to check. We had to put the headdress on the seats. We had to check the food coming on board. We had to set up the galley. We had to do all that before we even greeted passengers. By the time we greeted passengers, you know, we had to take an extra uniform because we'd be hot and we'd be sweating or something. Had to get another uniform. And then we had to serve the crew. We had air evac flights where we had mental patients come on that would strap down and everything, and they had the flight nurses. We had to, the only flights that we could refuse was we had to carry a dead body in a coffin. We could refuse their flights, but I never refused a flight. And when we got to Wake Island,
Is that where you went from West Palm?
No, this is, I went to Travis Air Force Base from West Palm.
Okay.
That's where I was stationed, my first base when I was on flying status.
Where is that?
That's in California, Fairfield, California, just
Okay.
outside of Sacramento, between Sacramento and San Francisco.
Okay. Tell me about that duty station.
That was my first station that I flew, that I was on flying status. I flew in the C-97, the Stratocruiser, 4 props, you know. And we flew all over the Far East. We flew from Hawaii to Wake Island, Japan, Kwajalein, Johnson, Midway, Guam, Philippines, Taipei.
What was your favorite? What was your least favorite?
Well, I like Japan. Wake Island was pretty good, but it wasn't that much to do there. There was a lot of Filipino guys there, and we used to go to beaches with them, and they would have cookouts at the beach and ride around on the Harley Davidson like we were crazy all around the island. They had fishing there, and eventually, about the only thing that was there to do was the bars. So we just got off, you know, just went and drank. And then they finally built a barracks there for us because we used to stay in like little Quonset huts, and it was all open, you know. And then we had to fly with, they had stewardess, civilian stewardess flying through there, and they were real wild. I mean, you go in the barracks, and we had the barracks for the female, and it was open, so the guys that come in, the Filipino guys that come in to clean, and so it was hot, so we would sleep with just our half slip on, you know, with the sheet on us. And some of those civilian girls, we had another room where they had open bay, double bunk, and I'd be in there asleep, and they would invite guys in, and I wake up with the guy sitting on my bed. Yeah, and I said, what's going on? I was upset, and we complained about it. I know one time I was there, it was late at night, and this guy was drunk, and I had got up to get ready for flight, and he was standing outside, and I said, he was coming in. I said, you can't go in there, it's female barracks. So he just said, okay, and then he turned around and went back. And I left, and then I was on the plane, and they came to get me saying, want to know, did I see this guy that came in the barracks, because he went in there, and I think he raped a nurse. And my pilot said that I couldn't go back because I had to go out on a trip. So I had to go. So I don't know what happened. And I thought, well, I told him to get the hell out and everything else, and I said, God, you know, I don't know why he didn't, you know, just didn't do anything to me.
Yeah.
But I know when we were flying the line, we carried stilettos and switchblades. Yeah, well, you know, you there, and the doors, no locks on the doors and everything, and you didn't know what would happen. And then when we went to Kwajalein, that was a Navy island, and they didn't have any barracks for the females. So we had to go in the male barracks. They had 2 rooms put aside from us. And there, we carried our switchblades, and we slept with it underneath our pillow. And the guys, you know, they get drunk, and then they want to come in the room. They used to climb outside the building and come across the ledge. Well, this one night, this sergeant, we had a baseball bat, and it was a broken baseball bat. But it was 2 girls in the room, and so this sergeant told the other one to be quiet because the guy was coming in the window, and she was there ready to lay him out with the baseball bat, and the other girl screamed, and he ran off. You know, you have to be, you know, sometimes you're only female on the crew. And I know I went to Taipei, and I was the only female in the crew, so we had to stay overnight because there was something wrong with the plane. Sometimes the engineers would say that there was something wrong with the plane just to stay, you know. And so we had to stay overnight there. I know when we were flying over there, you could see, they were shelling the mainland, and you could see the trace of bullets going back and forth.
What year was this?
This was in about 62, yeah, about 62, because I got out in 63. And so we got on the bus to take us to the billets, and they stopped at a hotel, and we looked, and all these females were going up and down the stairs, and I look out, and they said, "Oh no, this is the wrong hotel," because the guys would have probably stayed there if I wasn't there. So they said, "Wrong hotel." So they took us to another hotel, and then they wanted to put me in with the engineers, and they had to tell them, "No, she cannot stay with the engineers. She has to have her own room." So I had my own room, but there was a door in between the rooms, and the guy said, "If anything happens, you know, you just open the door and let us know."
So they were looking out for you.
Oh yeah. And at Guam, they didn't have billets for the females at Guam either when we first went over there. So we stayed, they put me in the general suite. And there was a door, and I thought it maybe it's the door to another room. Well, it wasn't. I stayed up all night, 12 hours. I did not go to sleep because they had red ants in the bed. They had spiders all around the room. I made sure to take one of those bug bombs off the plane. And I just didn't go to sleep. I sprayed and everything. The guys went to sleep. They got bitten by the red ants. And then the next morning they tell me that I was in the general suite, and in the next room was a refrigerator full of food and a bar full of booze. I said, God, I wish I had known that.
At least if you were going to be awake, you could have been fat and happy, huh? Fat, drunk, and happy, huh?
Oh, God. And then the first time I went to the Philippines, I don't like bugs. And I said, if there's a bug in the barracks, I will not sleep at all. Well, we landed, and I looked in on the runway. I saw these things crawling on the runway. I thought they were mice. They were that big. They said they were water bugs. I mean, roaches this big. I said, if they're in the barracks, I will not sleep. I don't mind the little lizards being in the barracks, so they eat the bugs, you know. But they weren't in the barracks. But we went to the NCO club, and every time we went over there, we seemed to land every time it was happy hour on Wednesday, I guess, and the drinks were 2 for $1, and the drinks were only 5 cents. So with 50 cents, you know, on flying status, it seemed like everyone drank a lot.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know, because I didn't drink before I got on flying status. Because when I went to my first base in Air Force Base, I wasn't drinking, and I, you know, got to run around with the crowd that were drinking, and I go out with them, and I would drink 2 beers, and I pass out. And one time I drank the Tom Collins, and that did me in too. So my commanding officer says, 1 beer for you, and that's it. But after you get on flying status, they just drink a lot. And we got booze cheap overseas. You know, it was, I guess, vodka was 65 cents a fifth. Scotch was $1.65. We used to bring back bottles to barter with on base. You know, someone wanted to work on your car or something like that. Trade bottles for food sometime at the mess hall with the cooks, but we got to know the cooks real good. The ones they said should get to know the cooks and the medics. And the cooks, when we were stationed at Travis, we go over to the mess hall, and like we want corn on the cob, we put a double paper bag up there, put all this corn in there, and took 2 pounds of butter on top. By the time we got back to the barracks, the butter be all melted down in the corn. We get steaks about this big, this thick, and cook it in the barracks. We had it made.
Nice.
But only thing on flying sets, you had to keep your weight down.
What was the weight limit?
Well, weight according to height. So if you're 5'6", 5'7", you had to keep it down by about 120, 125. If you didn't, they'd kick you off status.
Did you get extra pay for being in flying status?
Oh, yeah. I got my base pay. I got my flight pay, which was $85 extra. I got my separate rations. I got my clothing allowance. And I got my overseas pay. And I got my per diem. Every time we made a trip to Japan, it was about $150. You know, it was less if you went to Hawaii. And I used to make maybe about 3 trips a month to Japan. And they would fly us quite a bit more than they fly the civilian stewardess. But, you know, they didn't want us to fly that much. But this one major used to like me, and he said, when they said I couldn't fly because I had too many hours, and he'd come and he'd see me, he said, what are you doing? I said, nothing. Can you go? He said, you going out on a trip? No, because so-and-so says I can't go. He said, well, you want to go? I said, yeah. And so he'd go in and put my name on the trip. And after after I got out of the service, we went for a reunion, and I saw the sergeant credit used to be over me, and he said, I said, you remember me? He said, yeah, I remember you. You're the one that caused me to get in trouble all the time, because once the major said I could go, he couldn't say I couldn't go. So he said I gave him a hard time.
What was the cap on how many hours you could fly?
God, I forgot what it was, but it might have been about 80, but we would get 125 easy.
In what time period?
In a month.
Okay.
See, the students outside, they can't fly that many hours. But they said if we didn't want to fly that many hours, that we could go to the flight service and put DNIF, duty not involved in flying. So if they called us for a trip and we didn't want to go, that's when you know the medics. Because one time I didn't want to go, and this medic said, well, I had on a ring. He said, turn it around so it looked like a wedding ring. He told the doctor I was his wife, and I didn't have to go on the trip.
You were talking earlier about some of the trips that you could refuse.
If you were flying, if they had like a body coming back in the coffin, we could refuse that trip. We flew nuclear canisters too, and I was kind of nervous around that because they had it suspended in a cage and everything. I didn't
so it wouldn't bump around.
Yeah, and then the air evac, they would bring back guys with a striker. You know, they had their heads wired. You know, I don't know, they had some kind of injury to their back or something, or their neck, but. Sometimes the people were mentally ill, and they would strap them down. But sometimes the nurses, I don't know what was wrong with them, they would let them up, you know, and you walk down the aisle and they try to grab your leg or something, you know. One guy tried to inflate the raft, the life raft in the back of the aircraft.
How many passengers would you average on your flights?
I think about 60-something, maybe 69, something like that. We would get passengers would get sick. We hated when the passengers got sick.
Why would they get sick?
Air sick.
Okay.
And one got sick, and the other one smelled it, then they got sick, and if the flight was real rough, we had a whole plane load sick. I know one time when I was in training, I was flying with another female, and this guy was in charge. And he wasn't doing any work. He was letting us do all the work. It was a night flight, and the passengers were all getting sick. And we were running up and down the aisle trying to give them the burp bags and everything. And I sat down near the galley that was up near the front. And I wasn't feeling good. After you helping them, you start feeling sick. And so I sat down. So someone put a burp bag on top of the galley, just put it up there, and it was open up. And the other students went to hand it to me upside down. And I got it from here all down. I jumped up and went straight to the bathroom and got sick.
Oh.
So both of the females were sick. And the guy was sleeping. And we said, no, you got to get up because we can't do anymore. So we were getting ready to land, and so he had to clean up the plane. And this one guy was sitting there with his daughter was sitting on the other side of the aisle. His son was sitting here. He got up to help the daughter who was sick, the little girl who was sick. When he was up helping the little girl, the son got sick in his seat, And he sat in it, and he got up to help take the, and then the steward that was with us, he was picking up the box lunches, and it was dark, and he picked up the box lunch, and it was someone had thrown up on that.
Was that a particularly rough flight?
Oh, yeah. Going to Hawaii in the wintertime, would get pretty rough. I mean, it would get so rough that you couldn't even hardly get out of your seat, you know. And then sometimes we would, on a night flight, one of us would go to sleep. And they had the crew bucks up in the crew compartment. And I was up there one time sleeping, and it was a really rough flight. And I said, the hell with it, I am not getting out of this bunk. I just tucked my hands in like that. And when it did calm down, I went back, and the guy with his knees was shaking, the steward that was with me, because he said, you don't know how rough it was. I said, oh, yes, I do. Because sometimes you're up in the air, and that plane would drop about 1,000 feet. You know, you're like in outer space, like everything, if you're not strapped in like they tell you to strap yourself in, I always know to strap myself in. If I'm on the plane and going to go to sleep, I just stay strapped in. But you just float up like this, like you're in outer space, and then everything just drops. Have you ever had that done?
I've been on a plane once where it dropped significantly. I was strapped in, though. It caused me to stop flying for years, though.
Well, I flew in we used to fly in the C-47s. That was a small two-engine plane. And I guess we were flying back to the East Coast, and this girl was on a couch, because it was like a plush plane, small plane. And she was sleeping, and all of a sudden she just went all the way up to the ceiling. She was grabbing for the pillow. She went all the way up to the top of the fuselage, and then she just dropped back down. And I had my seatbelt on loosely, so I didn't to come up about this much, and then I didn't go anywhere else.
Wow.
But you know, you had like the galley. You had the jugs, the two-gallon jugs of coffee and stuff. Those things are heavy, so you had to strap them in, because if you didn't, they would float up, and then they come down and hit you. You're going to get hurt. So that's why we tell everyone to, like on the planes now, they want you to put your baggage in there and close it up, because they don't want anything hitting the passenger. And on the C-97, it wouldn't be a normal trip if we didn't lose an engine. I mean, they said that, well, it can fly as well on 3 as it can on 4. I said they wouldn't put 4 on here. We had some close calls in the air.
Tell me about those.
I was going into Hawaii one time. I was sitting at the window, and I saw this plane coming on this side, and I said, yeah, ye God, you know. And the passenger said, what? And I said, nothing. You know, I didn't want, you know, make them be uncomfortable. So after we landed, I told the engineer, I said, you don't know how close we came to not being here, because the plane had almost hit us. And I know one time we had, you know, when we weren't on staff, when we weren't flying, we were on crew rest. Sometimes we'd be on the ground for 2 weeks and nothing to do. They call us up once a day to see if they had a flight for us. We had to call them once a day between 2 and 4. If they didn't have anything for us, then we're just off. Sometimes someone would go DNIF and they would call you back, and you have to go out. So after I called in, I made sure I didn't answer the phone anymore. I lived off base. I made sure I didn't answer that phone anymore that day. But we used to have to go, they do, what do they call it? Local flights. A local flight is when the pilot has to get in his flying time, his training time, and they do nothing but touch and goes, you know, take off and go, take off and go. We had to do that for 4 hours. Some of those pilots never learned how to land that plane, and it would take out your stomach every time they bounce it in, bounce it in. And we had to be a lookout. We stay in the back of the plane, and we had to look out and say, you know, aircraft at 10 o'clock high or 5 o'clock low, or at 5 o'clock or 2 o'clock. And here this plane was coming towards us, and I was, you know, I put on my shades because I didn't feel like looking out the window, and I pretend I was looking out the window. And here I see this plane. I open my eyes, see the plane coming towards us. I went to grab for the mic, and I grabbed for the mic, and I missed it, you know, and then finally I got it. I said, aircraft at 10 o'clock. And the pilot said he saw it. He was so mad. because the plane was trying to beat us in. We were the bigger plane, so we had the right of way to come in. And the pilot was so mad, he was cursing when we got on that ground. And I think he turned him in. I think the guy got suspended, you know. But one time we were coming out of Hawaii, and it was dark, it was cloudy, and they gave us clearance to XN to 9,000 feet. And I don't like to fly in clouds today. It makes me nervous. And here was a Navy plane. The pilot already sat down near the galley, and the co-pilot was at the controls, and I was standing right behind him watching. And here we see this plane, and we're trying to figure out which way is it going. You know, it's a green light on one side, red light on the other, and we figured out that plane is coming right at us. I mean, they gave them plane to descend to 9,000, us plane to ascend to 9,000. And so they didn't see us. It was cloudy and everything. And the co-pilot, he turned on the landing lights. It was a Navy plane. He turned on the landing lights so they could see us. And then we went up and to the right, and I guess the other plane turned that way. But I just knew we were going to hit. So I just stood there and closed my eyes. I said, I don't want to see this. But we missed by about 100 feet, which is pretty close in the air.
How did you deal with close calls like that and then still know you had to go out again?
That was your job, so you know, I just figured, well, this is my job, then.
It didn't make you want to get out of that field and walk away? Wow.
And we lost people. I know this guy's wife came to be stationed on the Travis with him, and I met him at Wake Island. He was coming in from Hawaii, and his wife was in Japan, and I said, I just missed her. You know, he said, did I see his wife? Now, I was coming in from Japan. I said, no, I didn't see her because I just missed them. They came in after us. And that plane went down. They lost everyone on the plane. I don't think they found a trace of that plane, all the passengers. And my roommate was supposed to be on that trip, but this other woman from Hawaii, she begged her to take the trip because she hadn't been on a flight in a long time. And my roommate was kind of sick over it, you know.
This was an Air Force plane?
Yeah, C-97.
What year was that? Do you recall?
It was maybe in 56 or 57.
Wow.
And then when I got stationed up in Washington State, we lost a plane up there too. But we lost a lot. We lost a lot of planes down in Travis because the 124 went down, and this guy that used to like me was on that plane, and he got killed. In fact, he left Hawaii, and he said that he gave me his rabbit foot because he said I need it more than him, and he went down.
Do you still have the rabbit's foot?
No. And then this guy named Smitty, there was two guys I knew, Smitty, and I got to Hawaii, and this guy Smitty said, did I see the other Smitty? And I said, yeah. He said, do you know what's happened to Smitty? I said, I just saw him when I left Travis. He went to, I think, Alaska. He was flying up to Alaska, and he said he went down. I said, what? I just saw him this morning, and he went down, his plane went down, and they didn't find it until about 6 months after.
Was he a pilot, or was he one of the stewards?
He was a loadmaster.
Okay.
Loadmaster. 124 was a cargo aircraft. But we lost a lot of planes. And, you know, every time a plane went down, we would get called all night long. I mean, everyone's calling, your relatives, friends, everything. So we would be up all night long. The plane went down. They called to see if you were okay, because if they say a plane went down in Travis, then my family's going to be calling. But that, you know, I flew with guys that was afraid. This one guy, he was afraid, and he was acting afraid. I said, look, go back down the aisle and smile at the passengers when you go back down, and then to reassure them, and then come back up. But he went down, and I know he was scared. He was from Louisiana.
His plane went down too? Mm. Wow.
Yeah, we lost a few planes.
How did you handle losing so many people you knew in plane crashes and still fly?
You just had to get back on the plane. I mean, that was your job, so you just said it was my time to go. It's my time to go.
Were you ever afraid being on the plane?
Yeah, I was afraid that time when that we almost had that collision. And now, like I said, when we go out, when we fly and it's in clouds, I said, oh, please let us get out of these clouds. You know, because I just remember that.
Now, you showed me an article yesterday
Yeah.
that was talking about how many trips you had flown overseas?
Yeah.
What was that? Tell me about that article.
It was, okay, I was stationed up in Washington State, and they were holding me in from flying, and I said, well, why can't, they said, well, you have to stay in, and they wouldn't tell me why. And finally, when they let me go out, and I went down to Travis, and they said that they had reporter and a photographer from Ebony that wanted to write a story on me, because at that time, I was the only black female flying out of the West Coast. I don't know who told them about me. But we did have other black females, but they got off status. There was 3 others when I was stationed at Travis, but when I went up to Washington, I was the only black female. So they went with me from Travis all the way. They followed me to Japan, and then they wanted to take pictures back in New York, but I got back in New York, and they took so long coming. I said, the hell with them. I said, I'm not waiting, so they just did the story for what they had.
Do you recall the reporter's names, the photographer's name? And what year was this?
This was in 1960. They put out in the May issue. It took them about a few months before the article came out. I didn't even know it had come out until I got this passenger on my plane. He was a Navy guy, and he said, I was just reading about you. And he had the magazine. I said, really? So he showed me the magazine, and oh, that magazine went worldwide. And my father didn't want me to go into service. He was so proud, you know, and you couldn't find any of the magazines on base because everyone was buying them up.
And you were the only black female at the time flying
out of the West Coast. Yeah.
Wow. How did you feel once you realized that? How'd that make you feel?
I don't know, but you know, before I left home, I had told my brother and sister, I said, one of these days you're going to be reading about me. And when that happened, I said, oh, wow. You know, that made me feel pretty good.
Nice. And how many, the headline said 200 something or other. What was that?
It said I flew enough trips to circle the globe, 200 times or something like that. How did I get there? Oh. She crossed the ocean 200 times, circled the globe, I don't know.
She has crossed the ocean 200 times, circled the globe 48. Wow. May 1960 is when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a reporter's name on here.
Probably that. They have
Airman Johnson ranks above civilian airline hostesses. This is quite a big spread. This is 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages, 6 pages. How long were they with you?
Oh, God. The whole trip. And the trip, you know, like we went from, we flew from Washington down to Travis, and then we take the flight to Hawaii. We got a crew rest.
Mm-hmm.
So they crew rest in Hawaii. They had wanted to do more on me, and they wanted me to, there was a singer, Ann Weldon. Have you heard of her?
I don't think so.
She's an actress, too. She hasn't been on TV. Well, anyway, she was singing in Hawaii, and they wanted me to get together and do something with her, but I had to leave, so I didn't get to she didn't get to take pictures with me. And then we went to Wake Island, then I had to crew us again for 12 hours, at least 12 hours on the ground. Then at Wake Island, we go to Japan. I was tired. I was tired of taking pictures. And I had to stay up and take pictures there. So they stayed with me to Japan, and then they left, and then they wouldn't catch up with me in New York because I said I was going on leave.
Okay. And they didn't make it there before your leave was up?
I didn't wait for them. I was tired of taking pictures. They take a lot of pictures.
They do, indeed. Did they send you copies of the magazine?
No, I had to buy it, you know. I tell you, I didn't even know that it was in the magazine.
Wow. What was the response? I know you said your dad was really proud, and
Oh,
some of
yeah.
your passengers. What about other people you knew?
Oh, they were all buying the magazines. We couldn't find them, especially on base. Yeah, they were all buying the magazines.
How long did it take before people stopped
I don't remember.
bugging you about your celebrity?
I don't remember, but I know they were all buying them. They have it on microfiche in the library. I know it's still there. My uncle, he was written up in Ebony too. In January 1967, he was a Navy fighter pilot.
What's his name?
Joseph Henriquez.
Okay.
Yeah, he shot down quite a few planes.
How much longer? So this was 1960.
Mm-hmm.
How much longer after that? After 1960. So this is 6 years now. You're in the military.
Yeah, I was in.
'Cause you said at 54. Is that when you went in?
Yeah, and I stayed until 63. I got out in 63.
Okay.
9.5 years.
Why did you get out at that point?
Because they were taking the females off status, and then I wanted to go to college, and I couldn't go to college while I'm flying. You're out all the time, so I decided to get out and go to college.
And did you use GI Bill to go to
Yeah.
college?
Hmm.
Okay.
I went to the University of Hawaii. I went to Merced Junior College. In Merced, I went to
Merced, what state?
California.
Okay.
I went to USC, California, Southern California College, and I went to City College.
New York?
No, LA City College.
Okay.
Then I switched over to Cal State.
Why so many?
I had to get out of LA City because that was 2-year college, and they said if I stayed in there too long that some of my credits wouldn't count to the 4-year college.
Okay.
So,
What was your major?
business. When I went to Merced Junior College, I was majoring in law enforcement because I thought I wanted to be a policewoman. But I didn't end up being a policewoman. I didn't end up being the sheriff. But I had a friend that worked for LA County, and they had an opening in the Department of Weights and Measures, and they didn't have any females, and they were told that they have to hire females if they qualify. So she told me about it, and she said, did I think I could handle the job? I said, yeah. So she interviewed me. She said, well, she didn't want to interview me because she knew me. So I said, well, I'd rather have one female than the rest male. And she had to score me high because the males scored me high. And I think I went through about 4 interviews. And then they pulled this agility test that they hadn't pulled because it was females. And some of the females came with heels on. What you had to do, they had a cart that weighed 50 pounds. Then they put 450 pounds on the cart. You had to take the cart and roll it up an incline. Then you had to get over to something like a scale about this high, and you had to take the 50-pound weights with one hand, lift the 50-pound weights one at a time up on the cart. By the time I got to about the 9th one, my hand was kind of quivering a little, and I looked up and here all these guys standing looking at me in the windows, saying, well, how is she doing this? And so I put it back down on the cart, and then you had to roll it down an incline, then you had to get to the back of the truck with the tailgate. You had to get it up on the back of the truck. Some of the guys didn't pass the test. So the guys were surprised when they saw me lift these weights. And they stuck me in the scale division. And that was the worst division they could stick you in. They really wanted me to quit. And, some days, checking scales, I would lift over 3,000 pounds. And by the time the weekend came, I was glad because my back was really... And this one guy, he felt kind of sorry for me. And he said that I had to check Duke Cummings, a steel company. And they have big scales there. And sometimes if you couldn't roll the weights on the scale, you got to lift those weights and you got to check each corner of the scale with about 200 pounds of weights. And then you'd have to check the bar, you know. And if the scale, if the dial went up to 1,000 pounds, you had to put 1,000 pounds on that scale. And sometimes you had to lift the weights on there, unless they had a forklift or something, or you can roll it on. And there were a lot of scales. So he said that he would go with me to check those scales, because he said that it was enough to kill 2 guys. But they put me in the meat packing area. And I mean, the cards for the meat packing area was like this, stacks of cards like this. And I'd go in to check the scales, and the guys look at me and say, well, how come you're here by yourself? I said, what do you mean? They said, they usually put 2 guys on this detail. I said, oh, really? So when I got back to the office, my supervisor, I was still on probation, and I said, don't expect 100% out of me. He says, what? I said, you heard me, don't expect 100% out of me. And they let me do 2 sections of it, and then they said they felt sorry for me, so they're going to put this Japanese guy in to do the meat packing area. And he said he couldn't do it because he has a weak stomach. And they have the kill floor there. You know what the kill floor is?
No.
Oh. When they bring in the cows, the cattle, and they string them up, and they shock them with the electric prod, and then they string them up and they slit their throat, and there's all blood and everything, and you got to face it. And sometimes those cows, they're scared, and they panic, and sometimes you got to watch out, you know, in there. And then you go through to check the scale and everything. You got to go through all these cows hanging up on the hooks and everything. Then you got to roll. You got to bring that truck up. You got like over 1,700 pounds of weights on the truck. You got to know how to lift the tailgate up, roll the thing off. And these guys would play tricks. This one guy I was working with, we had to go check a place, and was down near the railroad tracks. He's going to park the truck about a block and a half away from the ramp. You know, the ramp is up this high. And then he made me put 1,000 pounds of weight on the cart and roll it over the railroad tracks up to the damn platform. And I had to lift the weights up like that off the cart, then lift the cart up. He didn't even help me. And then I had to walk the weights over to the scale and check the scale. And then I had to lift them back down and then take them back over and put them on the truck. And he said, do you think you can do 20 of those in one day? I said, is that what's required? So he didn't say anything, but when I would work with him downtown, you know, he wouldn't help me lift the weights or anything, and these old ladies would see him standing by me doing all the work, and they used to really get on him. He would turn red and everything and get mad. But
why do you think he was doing that? Because you're a woman?
Yeah. They were doing it. And the guys asked him, well, how is she doing? He said, well, she's doing okay, but she doesn't lift the weights like we do. What's the difference? But I had this one guy that said he's going to show me how to lift the weights. So he showed me. He said, you don't pick them up. He said, just take them and just sling them like this. Sling them like this. So after a while, I got real good at it. And when I go in to check the scale companies, you know, we had to check the scales that they just fixed and everything. And the guys would want to help me, and I didn't want them to help me because they would slow me down. And then I get the weights, and I have the tip, you know, I take them back out to the truck and have to put them up on the tailgate. And they would see me, and they said, well, I'll do it. And they go, and they can't get them up. I said, excuse me. Head taken, and all I do is roll it up there, line it up, roll it up, and step on the back of the thing that goes right up.
You showed them something.
And then I would work with some guys, they didn't know how to do it. And they would forget, once you get the thing up on the tailgate and you have to raise that tailgate up, you got to lock that cart on. If you don't lock that cart on, it's going to come down and you're going to have 500 pounds, you know, and you better be out of the way, because it would dent the concrete when that 50-pound block hit the concrete.
Wow.
And bend your cart up and everything else.
How long did you stay in that job? And did you ever go back in the
25 years.
military? Oh, okay. In the scales area?
No,
Oh.
I got out of that. I got out of that real fast. They put me in meters when I checked the gas stations. And I think I must have checked that for 5.5, 7 years, going around checking the gas stations. And you check to make sure that the people are getting the right amount when they buy the gas. But we would find them; they would be off, and we would take them to court. We'd find enough short. Sometimes, I didn't find it very often, but sometimes a pump would be 2.5 gallons short, because we had 3 5-gallon measures on this van, and you open up the pump, and then you pour it. You pump till it says 5 gallons on the pump. Then you look at your measure to see if you got. They go plus or minus 5 cubic inches. If it goes down below that, that means the customer's getting cheated. If it goes up above that, that means that the station's getting cheated. But sometimes I would find it 2.5 gallons short. You keep pumping. I said, damn, they're coming up in the measure when it comes up to 0, and you're looking at 7-something gallons. Something's wrong. And then we would also check sometimes to make sure that, first of all, when I would check the pump, I would, without turning on, I would just press the nozzle to see if any gas comes out, because that'll tell me it's a bad foot valve. And I would look at another island to see if someone's got a pump open on that other island with the same rate of gas, because that'll tell me they got a bad foot valve. Because if someone found that, a customer found that, the little totalizer would be turning, but you don't see that little totalizer. But the price and the gallons, that won't move. So if you knew about it, you could fill up your car.
I'll check that out next time I go to a gas station.
Don't turn on the pump, just
press
it
the
in
nozzle.
There. Yeah, and see. I've gotten away with a few things.
Thank you for that tip.
But I know when I was checking, I was checking the gas pump. I got out of that, and I started checking, package. I go into the manufacturers, the package, the distributors. I would go into See's Candy, when they make See's Candy. I go into where they make cakes, and they have to weigh the cakes. I check milk. I check ice cream. I checked. We go
make
to
sure
check
if it
cigarettes.
said it's a gallon of milk, that it's a gallon.
Yeah, we check stuff like this.
The juice.
We check popsicles. Popsicles is a destructive test. They have I had mine made because I didn't like to count it. I just had mine made. It was a round cylinder thing, clear plastic, and then you have a spout coming down. And then you would pour water in that, ice cold water. You want it to be as cold as possible. And then you take the popsicle, it says 4 fluid ounces. You have another measure. I carry like an 8-ounce measure or a 4-ounce measure. And then you stick the popsicle down in the water, and you catch the water that's poured off. And if the popsicle said it's supposed to be 4 fluid ounces, I got to have 4 fluid ounces in that measure. If it comes up short, then that means that we would put the whole thing off sale. They would have to destroy it, relabel. Sometimes I'd go in and check bread, and they would, sometimes they would skimp on when they make the bread, and it would come out short. So they couldn't sell it. They could take it and give it to the pig farm, and we would have to go and watch them. If we check something that's in a package like rice or something like that, they would have to return it to bulk, and we would put the whole thing off sale. Liquor, we check liquor, mayonnaise, water, anything that's sold by weight or volume. We go in and check boxes of envelopes, and we do that by weight. We would count out so many envelopes, then weigh them up, and then we would know how much the box should weigh. And when you check stuff like stuff by weight, you have to take a tear weight. Like we had an over and under scale, balance scale, and we would empty it out to get the tear, and then we would have our weights. And if it says 16 ounces, we put 16 ounces on this side with the container, and then we start checking the product to see if it comes out. If not, we could put the whole warehouse off sale.
Wow.
I did it with cookies, candy, ice cream,
Wow.
oil. We check car oil. We check everything that you buy. Also go in the stores and pretend like we're customers and buy over the scale. And I was good at that. They said I didn't look like an inspector. I didn't want to look like an inspector. And they would cheat you like mad, especially all the Koreans. They would cheat their own grandmother. I said, my boss had asked me, well, where can I find the black cheaters? I said, you show me a black store in the black area, I'll find them. But mostly the Koreans had the stores in the black area. And if they're going to cheat me, I said, I'm going to make sure they cheat me good so I can take them to court. I'm not going to buy one pack of oxtails where I just give them a notice of violation. I buy 2 packs. And I'm sending them to court. Sometimes they would just out and out cheat. When they had those old scales, you buy something and then you identify yourself and you go back there and behind the counter and I'm weighing it up and the guy is looking at me, I'm looking at him. He said, it's just a small mistake. I said, you're 2 inches away from where it's supposed to be. You got to know how to read the scale because those old scales, it just shows the customer the weight, but behind it shows the money value. And the new scales that they have, the electronics, well, you can see the tear weight, you know. But they teach you on those too because one guy, this Mexican guy I bought 3 items and I'm looking at the price and he's going 20 cents over. And I said, well, maybe they got it marked different on the other side. I got behind the counter and it's the same price. So, you know, they look at me and they hate. Sometimes we'd have trouble where they wouldn't give us information. So we called the police. When the police come, they pull out all kinds of ID. Don't have to say anything. One time I had to take someone to jail. They wouldn't give us information, so we took her to jail. And I guess they had a Korean cop speak to her in Korean, and so she decided that she's going to sign the citation.
So you did this for 25 years and you retired. I want to shift back to the military side because we are here at the National Association of Black Military Women reunion. When did you become involved in this organization?
Which one?
National Association of Black Military Women.
Oh, it's been about 6 years ago, I guess, or maybe 8 years ago.
What made you become involved?
Juanita Scott had told me about it. So I went to, I've only been to one reunion besides this one here.
Okay. Why did you want to become involved in this organization?
Just it was military, you know, it was military organization and, you know, you get together with people that have been in the military.
Are you a member of any other military organizations?
Yeah, I belong to the WAF reunion. I go every year to the WAF reunion.
Where was the reunion this year? This is the Women's Army Air Force?
No, the Women in the Air Force reunion. Women in the Air Force.
Okay.
We had a cruise. We went to Cozumel.
This year?
Yeah. And we went to the Grand Cayman Islands, and we went to Ocho Rios.
How many women were there on that?
About 90-something. Not too many. We usually have more, like 200 and something, but I guess they couldn't afford the cruise, you know. Mm-hmm. So it was a 7-day cruise out of Miami.
So you were in regular contact with military people.
Oh, yeah.
Did you do any other military time after?
Yeah, I stayed out for 10 years after I got out of the Air Force, and I saw all those years going to waste. So I went and joined the Army Reserves. And I stayed in from, I think, 73 to 96, something like that. So altogether, they said I got 31 years.
What rank did you retire at?
I retired at Sergeant First Class, but I made E8. And they're so prejudiced still in the military. And when I made E8, they were going to send me to a school to teach school. And this one woman that had been over there, she said that you know that they don't like women over there at their school.
What school was it?
It was just a reserve school. I don't know what they would tell you what to teach, you know, different classes. And I got over there, and the first thing they do is they weigh me in on a bathroom scale. They're not supposed to weigh in on a bathroom scale, because I used to check the scale what we used to weigh in, and I would certify that scale. And they weighed me in on the bathroom scale. Then they gave me to a female to tape me that had never taped before. And she taped real loose. I could get 2 hands down. And when you tape loose like that, it's going to be off. And I complained about it. I wrote in about it. And by that time, they had revoked the orders. So it was hard to get them to promote me again. And then they wanted to put out all the top NCOs because they wanted to save money. And so when you had enough time in, they would let you go. And I wrote to the IG in Washington, and I got the letter back so fast I said that they, you know, not even considering. And I'm still trying to get that stripe back. Because at the time it was Desert Storm was going on. And I couldn't get anyone to weigh me at the hospital unit. I couldn't get Air Force to weigh me. I couldn't get weighed in anywhere, so I had to wait till this major came back. And she weighed me in, and she said I passed. By that time, they had already revoked the orders, and they weren't going to give me it back.
Why did you decide to go in the Army Reserve, not Air Force Reserve?
Well, because the Air Force said I stayed out too long, and they wanted me to drop a stripe. And I didn't feel like dropping a stripe.
What was your rank at that time when you decided to go back in?
It was Airman First Class. It was like a sergeant. And then when they took me in the Army, they took me in as a spec. But I made a rank, and I wanted hard stripe because, you know, they respect you more when you're hard stripe. So then I made staff sergeant. Then I made, and it was hard making rank because, you know, they put you up for rank and then they don't do anything. They just slip your paper back in the drawer. And I got mad at this one sergeant and went over his head, you know, and so they had, and then I went to another unit, well, another section, and I got promoted because.
What was your job?
I was in supply. It's a supply unit. Just doing warehouse stuff and everything. And then I went to, we were working with the computers after a while.
So you retired as an E7, Sergeant First Class? Okay. What did you find were the differences between Army and Air Force?
Well, the billets are better, you know.
The Army or Air Force?
Oh, in the Air Force. In the Army, you know, they had open bay. Even in basic training, we didn't have open bay. We had rooms. We had like Hollywood-style beds. We had 2 and 3 to a room. We had private johns. The bases I've been to with the Army is open bay. The showers are all open. You know, here, spigot here, spigot here, spigot here. The johns, maybe 10 line up on this side, 10 line up on this side. No partitions. And in the field is even worse. And one base we went to, and we told them, look, females need some kind of partition. You know, we can't be out there with the johns. So we had the engineers, they came in and they put up wire, strung up wire this way and wire this way, and we had some surplus sheets. So we made our own privacy, made a stall here and then sheet in front where you could close it up. But I hated field trips. Because you just in this big tent and it's dirt floor, you know, and just these uncomfortable bunks. And then sometimes if we were advanced crew, we had to be, we act like, what was it? We played the war games. So the men and women slept in the same tent. Here's a guy sleeping here, there's you here. And even in open bay, if the officers, they didn't have enough room in their billets, they would come and get in our billets and sleep, you know, next to us in the bed here and a bed here. But in the field trip, you know, we slept with our clothes on. But the guys, they would get underneath the sheets and take off their uniforms, stuff like that. I know one field trip I went on, and they had an odd number of females. So I was the odd one out, and we had pup tents. You had one half of the pup tent, the other. So the guy said, well, I'll sleep with you. I said, no, that's okay. I'll sleep with this young guy, Stone. And so I slept in my uniform. It was cold, too. and I was, you know, you have the mountain bags, and I slept. I had the thing closed up like this. They said don't close up the thing. I was closed up in that, and I had to get up to go to the bathroom. I did not get out of that. I was too cold, and the bathroom was too far away. And I said I just go back to sleep. But when I got up the next day, my hat was outside. It had ice on it. It was so frozen, you know. And then this one guy was saying he had to get up to go to the bathroom at night. But you know what he did? All he did was unzip the bag and lift up the thing and go to the bathroom. He didn't even get out of his sleeping bag.
The advantage of being a man, huh?
I know.
Wow.
Oh, God. But I know one time, I wasn't used to pulling guard duty. We went down to Pendleton and we were sleeping in the tents, and it was raining, and that they put me in guard duty in the daytime, and that was fine. But you know, I'm on top of an anthill. Then I saw a snake slither by, and they said I would have to pull guard duty at night. And I said I am not staying out there, pitch black, you can't see anything. So we weren't supposed to sleep in the deuce and a half. When we got up in the deuce and a half, they come looking for me. I didn't even answer. And I just said, the hell with them. And it was pouring down rain. The next day, the sergeant said, I was looking for you all night. Where were you? I said, up here asleep. So he said, oh, okay. So he said that I was going to have to take down all the electric lights and everything. I said, that's better than going out there in the dark. I didn't mind taking that down at night. I said, I didn't hear you call me.
Take your punishment, huh?
But we went to a lot of field trips, and we went to Utah, and that was we went to El Paso, Texas. That was bad. That was the biggest live fire in operation since World War II, I guess. And they had troops there from Germany, all over the place. And God, those tents, it was bad. It was hot. It was cold. It was raining. And we finally slept in the office where we worked. But the paratroopers were going into the hospital every day, you know, because it was windy down there. They get blown off. They injured their leg and everything. And then we had another live firing thing in Utah. And oh, God, we had to carry these weapons. Oh, you carry your weapons. You got to take it everywhere with you. And you had the steel pot. And you had the canteen and everything. And I had a bad back. And I said, I can't carry this. So I was supposed to go eat chow. And the guy said, well, I can't eat in the mess hall because the general's coming. And he didn't want me in there if I couldn't carry my stuff. I said, the hell with him. I said, I'm going to eat, you know, because they're not supposed to do that. And I said, after that last trip, I said, I'll break a leg before I go back on another field trip. I couldn't stand them. Sometimes you're out there with no bathroom, and you got to dig a hole, you know, and cover it back up.
Why'd you stay so long if you were so miserable?
I wanted to get some retirement out of them. But, you know, and then when I went away, sometimes I would go away 3 times a year. And the county would pay you while you're away, and the Army paid you. Not that I liked the trip, it wasn't no vacation. People in this county thought that I was on vacation. I said, it's not a vacation. Because they could work you as long as they want. And you don't get paid overtime in the Army. Sometimes we were up 16 hours a day working.
We just have a couple more minutes. Any words you'd like to share with young folks about military service?
Oh, well, when they ask me about going in, I tell them to pick the Air Force first, the Navy second, and forget about the Army and the Marines.
Why?
Because the Army and the Marines, they're going to be the first one to hit the beach. You know, the Navy, they're out in the water, you know, away from it. Then the Air Force, they fly over. I think the Air Force is the best duty that I've been in. The Marines have it rough. When they go through basic training, they're running. They don't walk, they run all over that base. They have it real rough.
So you tell them to go Air Force, then Navy.
Or Navy.
And that's it.
That's it.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to share?
I
Anything
can't
that I
remember.
forgot to ask you about, or anything else you wanted to tell me that you were hoping I'd ask you about?
I can't think of anything.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate you taking the time
Okay.
to come in and talk to me, and it's been a really great experience hearing your story.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.